we see people leave the space. And don't believe me? What happened to loan officers? In 2020, 2021, we're all making money hand over fist, right? What happened in 2022, in 2023? As rates went up, we saw loan officers leave the industry, right? Some voluntarily, some were fired, right? And why did that happen? Because simply put, they weren't making money. So as compensation goes down in any sector, you also tend to see attrition in the workforce because there's an opportunity cost, right? Like if I'm gonna do this job for $100,000 a year and now it's paying 45, okay? What's my opportunity cost? What else can I do to make 45? Is there an easier path, right? You will see realtors leave the space. This is not a great thing for somebody that has a business model solely predicated on real estate agent referrals. Because as there's less fish in the pond, there's less meat to catch. And this is an inevitable outcome. This is what I talk about when I say watch the dominoes fall. And it's going to be insidious in nature. It's not going to happen overnight. NAR settlement went into effect. You haven't seen realtors like exit the space, but you have heard grumblings. Have you not? I'm making less. My buyer doesn't want to pay me my 3%. I had to do it for 1.5%. You're already watching the cascading effects of these changes. Okay? Fun story for you. I was sitting in the living room with one of my close friends. At the time, he was vice president of a huge real estate brokerage out of California, and like 1,200 agents. And we're sitting there and we're talking, and I told him, you know, because he had a hand in that business, said, you need to start preparing for less revenue. Your margins are going to contract. He laughed me out of the room. And I told him they'd settle between 2 and 2.25 on each side. And he said, you're out of your mind. You're not going to contract. Why did I make that call? And technology makes things cheaper over the course of time. And eventually, it makes them free. Don't believe me? If you have a question today, how are you going to get that question answered? You. Where are you going to ask it? If you're sitting in a room by yourself.
I'll investigate on the internet.
Go to Google, go to ChatGPT, right? And how much does it cost you to make that search?
Free.
For those of you that are less chronologically gifted, there was a retarded version of Google. We called it Encyclopedia Britannica. This is what you used 35 years ago. And for those of you guys that remember, you got that first book for free. I only had one because we were fucking poor. Okay? But you had to buy the rest of the sets. To get the information, you had to pay to play. Fast forward to Google, you don't have to pay to play anymore. You look at different sectors of technology, this is what happens. Technology makes things cheaper over the course of time. Right? Fast forward about 10 months ago, he's the same guy's name, Anthony. Think about leaving the position as the VP. He wants to open up his own branch because he wants to get the net profit online, all the deals that he thinks he can close. I don't think he's okay. He asked me what I thought. And I said, yeah, it's a good idea. I want to be encouraging somebody that wants to take a risk, right? I took a risk. A lot of you guys, everybody here fucking took a risk, right? And I said, just to placate him a little bit, right? I said, oh, that's a good model, right? You're making like 3% on each side of the transaction, right? You guys can't write, man, 2.25 if we're lucky. I said, I'd like to take this moment to remind you how you laughed me out of your fucking living room in 2019. You need to think about how the consumer finds their services today. When I got in this business in 2004, who's been in the business for 15 years or more? I'm awesome. There was a time, right, where the way that you got your clients was through your network. Right? I remember when I got in this business, the internet wasn't what it was today. Zillow and Redfin didn't exist, okay? Websites were crap, and technology wasn't anything what it was today. You got your business through word of mouth, through how many people that you know. Okay? Also during that time, Yelp didn't exist. So if you wanted a restaurant, you would ask your friend. Okay? Show of hands, in the last 90 days, how many of you guys have asked somebody where to eat and made your decision based solely on that? 1, 2, handful. In the last 2 weeks, who used Yelp? Everybody, right? Because it's easier. It's easier for me than opposed to calling Brian and going, hey, where the hell would you eat over here in this restaurant or in this city? I can just jump on Yelp. And I can pictures, and I can see ratings, and I can see their menu, and it's an easier experience. So think about how customers find their services when it comes to restaurants. Why do you think it's any different when they were talking about their financials or their financial services? Where do you think they're starting? They're not starting by asking grandpa, how do you do a mortgage, right? They're jumping on the internet. And the deeper we move in time, as these young kids get a little older, they are going to lean more on technology. They're not going to use the archaic ways that we might have used when we were growing up. Right? Because that's not going to be their world. That was our world, right? Their world is technology. You want to be where your customers are, where their eyeballs are. Okay? Who here does social media content consistently? Who here has logged into social media in the last 48 hours? Why the fuck are you not doing social media content? Your eyeballs are there. You're looking there. Your customers are looking there. This is where the customer is. You have a question, you jump to the internet. Why do you think your customer isn't jumping to the internet? Why do you think that they are not using easier platforms? Maybe it's a little scary. Maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe you don't know how to enter the space. You're in luck, because in 2024, big bang technology now exists in the broker space at a fraction of the cost. If you needed to do this 10 years ago, you needed to hire 3 developers, have $150,000 to $250,000 in investments to build out the systems from scratch, and hopefully you knew how to do that. And if you made some errors, that bill might have gone to $350, and you probably didn't make some errors. That's really tough if you're a broker owner, and you know, I don't know a lot of people with $350,000 laying under their pillow. Okay? But nowadays you can get these things at a fraction of a dollar for pennies, a couple $100 a month. There's systems out there, there's technology out there that you can actually implement in a cost-effective manner. So entering in the consumer direct space is actually more feasible. Let's transition into how do you think about building these systems? You must have a CRM. I'm hoping that like every hand in the room goes up. Who's using a CRM here? Half the room. Okay. I want you to think in terms of volume. Okay. Let's say you are not using a CRM and you have 50 clients that you're introducing and you're trying to manage. That's easy to manage. You can figure out a way, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, maybe your Outlook calendar. Okay, it's easy to manage 50. What happens when you get to 500? What happens when you get to 5,000? Are those numbers manageable with those types of systems? You need a place to store the data. And there's what's possible and what's necessary. And the analogy I usually give is an automobile. Okay? If you want to buy an automobile, you could probably buy one for about 30 grand. It'll get you from point A to point B. Okay? And maybe that's all you need. So you don't need to spend a whole lot. But if you're trying to go 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, your cost on that car might be a tad bit more expensive, right? So there's what's needed and what's actually necessary. You don't need the Ferrari to get started. In fact, most guys that drive Ferraris, it's probably not their first car that they drove. They got their feet wet behind the system. There's cost-effective ways for you to do this. And depending on how deep down the journey you go, of course you can invest more dollars, get more sophisticated in your approach. Of course you can have a heavier footprint in that space and a more customized experience, but you don't need to start there. And I think this is one of the things that people are hesitant about, is that how do I get into this space, right? Because I don't have 50 grand that I can just dump into a system, right? If I look at my watch, I'm just making sure I'm staying on track, okay? I'm not bored with you guys. You want to think about some things when you're having a CRM. How will you get the data into the system, right? Like in my early days, when I first started building out the systems and I would buy these batches of leads, I would spend 45 minutes to an hour in the morning manually entering them in, right? Before I could start calling on them for the day, right? And I thought to myself, like, there is zero chance that a big company is doing this. It has a fleet of 50 people manually doing data entry. There's got to be an easier way to do this, right? Well, there was. There's software, something called Zapier, that in my early days, we now have APIs set up in a more sophisticated system, but like in my early stages, there was a system called Zapier, which talks to different apps. So we were able to get the lead, use one system to break apart the data, use Zapier to put it into the system. And there are solutions to this, and it only cost me a couple $100 to do this, right? But we've got to think about I'm gonna get my CRM, how am I gonna get the data into the system? There isn't a right answer, right? If you're somebody that's functioning on a really thin budget, yeah, maybe you are spending some time at 5 o'clock in the morning entering in data. And if you have a couple extra bucks to spend, you might be able to automate this for you. Think of it like an assistant, right? For those of you that have an assistant, it's because you're so busy that you need somebody else to help you, right? And so you solicit that help and you pay a service for it. Technology is the same thing. If you are so busy where you're like, this is taking money off my table to do this manual data entry, well then you can integrate technology to get that stuff in there. What's important to store on the initial input? Name, obviously, right? Contact information, right? That stuff's important. If you get really savvy, you start storing data like, are they looking to purchase or refinance? What kind of loan are they looking for? What's the loan amount? Where are they looking? The data that you store in your system, the more the data that you can store in your system, the more powerful your approach is going to be. Because you're going to have that information. Think about coming to a conversation where I know everything about you versus if I know nothing about you. Which one is going to be a more effective conversation? Which one's going to have a higher level of efficacy? Right? The more data you have in your system and you can store, the better off you are. Okay? I want to talk about for just a second here because there's an AIM partner called Bonzo. We utilize Salesforce, we built it from scratch, but Bonzo is built on the back of Salesforce and has all of the fields that are pertinent for mortgages. I think there's a couple other ones, and there might be a new one that they just added, but a lot of these CRMs are already built for you, they've already done the legwork. When I started my journey, this didn't exist in the capacity that I wanted it, so I had to build it, right? First by myself, and I taught myself using YouTube, right? Because I have no technology background, I'm not a developer. And eventually, I had to make the choice on if I wanted to be a mortgage broker or if I wanted to be a developer, and I hired developers because I'm a sick fuck and I want to be a fucking mortgage broker. Okay? And so are all of you if you're still in this business. The complexity and robustness of your CRM. It's really up to you. What do you want it to do? Nowadays, the systems I just talked to you about can do all the data storage, can handle communication, right? Can handle some of your outreach. When you lean into the space, you can explore different avenues, but you need to think to yourself, what do I want this system to do? Do I want to just store the data so that I can call on it? Or do I want some other features as well? The more complexity that you require, the more expensive it will be. And it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're at a budget where you can spend $200 a month or you can spend $2,000 a month, right? There's a solution path for you. So don't let cost be a prohibitive factor. Where, how to purchase and secure leads, defining a good lead source. Because you're right up front, I'm going to pick on you. As he stares off at the screen, he has no clue what I'm talking to him.
No, I got you.
How would you define a good lead source?
Someone that's going to convert.
Who has a similar answer? Anybody? Did I get a funded loan out of? Right? Most people answer it like this. This is not a magic trick. Okay? There's not rabbits out of a hat. Okay? I'm going to define to you what I think a good lead source is. Accurate contact information, not overly seasoned. I want a lead that's 5 years old, okay? And a genuine interest in a mortgage. If a lead vendor gives these things to me, they've done their job. From that point forward, if it converts, and that was a good answer, I kind of bet on the fact that would be the answer. Okay? From that point forward, if that lead converts, that's on you. And if it doesn't, hey, guess what? That's also fucking on you. Your effort, your approach is what's going to make the determination on if you actually generate business out of these things. A good lead source is nothing more than accurate contact information and an interest in a product. I don't want to buy a lead that's looking for solar and now I'm trying to sell them a mortgage. That's not a great lead source. Okay? Cost per lead. How much should you pay? I get this question frequently. How much are your leads? The answer is really broad, really wide. It's like asking, how much is a car? How would you answer that question? What kind of car, right? Like, what make, what model, what year, right? What are the features, right? You would have these types of questions before you could even give somebody an accurate answer on this. How much do leads cost? You can buy data for a couple bucks a lead. It's not gonna be that great. And you can pay all the way up to 150 bucks for a lead if you want a live transfer over to you. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The range is wide. How do you determine what I should spend on a lead? The answer to that, this is long game. This is not I buy 100 leads and hopefully I get some loans out of it, and then if I don't get loans out of it, I'm going to abandon my strategy. Your budget should be such that you can continue to repeat week after week, month after month, whatever that number is for you. So let's just say your budget is 500 bucks a month. Then you probably don't want to be spending 50 bucks a lead, do you? You're gonna get 2.5 leads a week. So the amount that you spend on leads would be determined on how much you can continuously spend and fuel the system with leads over and over and over and over again. Popular question that I get. What's the conversion ratio on your leads? Right? This is a really interesting question because it depends on if you're doing the arithmetic correctly. In a refi ripe environment, you're going to see them anywhere between 1 to 2% for conversion. The deeper the rate drop, the higher the conversion. When you go to a purchase environment, it can drop sub 1%. But you have to understand, and so you're going, why the hell would I buy 100 leads and try to get one loan or 200 leads and try to get a loan and a half out of that? Right? Like, what sense does that make? Most people don't do arithmetic very well. Okay? I will give you a case example. Your experience. Sometimes your borrowers raise concerns about how much money you're making, right? Because what they say, or how much a realtor's making. Because what they see is the giant price tag at the very end, but they don't understand all the stuff that had to happen before that price tag appeared, right? People tend not to do their accounting very well. When you think about conversion, if you're doing the arithmetic right, you're also factoring in for future deals. The example I give is there's 3 leads. These 3 leads I can think of off the top of my head, okay, which collectively cost me less than 100 bucks for those 3 leads. I generated 10 loans out of them and made over $100,000 just off these 3 leads. How? Well, I got repeat loan business, right? I ended up getting referral business. Okay? When you do loans, you do more loans, right? Like, as you do a good job, you fund a loan, your name gets passed around, right? That happens inside of your network. That happens inside of your social circles. This also happens when you're meeting strangers. You expand your footprint, you get into circles that you had no chance of getting into. Because guess what? I'm in San Diego. I don't spend a lot of time in San Francisco, but I close deals out there, and they have friends. So when you're doing the arithmetic, when you're calculating conversion, to me, in our system, I only calculate conversion on the first loan that's done off the lead that we purchased. Any subsequent deals, to me, are considered referrals. Because at that point, they're coming back to me because of how good of a job I did, not because I spent additional marketing dollars. But these things actually exist. So when you start looking at long game, and I built my business from the ground up using Consumer Direct, and when you look at the long game, you start to understand that every time you close a loan, you're probably getting yourself another half to 1 unit down the line from that same deal over the course of time. Right? So this is a long-term play, but you have to understand that arithmetic. So if you're only looking at the baseline conversion, you're missing it. And the canary in the coal mine is if this stuff didn't work, do you think Rocket would be doing it? Would they be in that space? They're in that space because it works. Live transfers versus list data. What's the difference? Okay. There's pros and cons to both. Right? Obviously, cost is going to be a difference. You get a live transfer, you can probably pay somewhere between $75 and $150 for that live transfer. Now that's a great lead because they got somebody on the phone ready to talk to you about a mortgage. Okay. The downside to that is if you're like me and you're really busy, you can't just chain yourself to a desk for 4 hours. You might be on a call already. You can't just take that call right away. If you're less busy, you might be able to take a live call like that. Okay? It's a high quality lead, but the cost you're gonna pay for it outside of the monetary expenditure is you are actually going to have time expenditure to give yourself the ability in the windows to answer those calls. And there isn't a right answer here. For some people that works really well. If you have really robust systems, they have a version of kind of a live transfer, but it functions off list. List getting the ability to buy data in mass. So if we have broker owners in here or team leaders, and you want to give your teams leads, lists are a good way to do that. You can get the place that we buy leads from. We buy free rate update. Okay, so that's one lead source right now, and another one is called Lead Point. Free rate update is like a hybrid live transfer. I turn on a spigot. I tell it how many leads I want for the day, which I can manipulate throughout the course of the day. And as they come in, I can service them. Now, I could get 20 leads in a day from that source. I could get 0. It just depends on the spigot. Okay? And then I have, because I have loan officers that work for me that get leads, I can't have a day where I have 0 where I'm supposed to get them leads. List solved this problem. The data is also cheaper because you can actually create filters like in Lead Point. If you're asking for an $800,000 loan, okay, with excellent credit and a 50% LTV, that lead's going to be a little bit more expensive than a $50,000 loan. We don't do those in California, but like a $50,000 loan with poor credit and a 98% LTV, right? So there's these filters that you can manipulate the cost, but the upside of buying lists is you get the opportunity to service those at your discretion. You don't need to be chained to your desk. Okay? Other ways of securing data for consumer direct. A lot of this has been built on technology, right? Or has been delivered to you on technology. There's other ways. We talked about one earlier, which is social media. The eyeballs are there. If you are utilizing social media, you will generate interest. Okay? Here's what I usually see with that. Okay? Realtors, loan officers alike. Decided to start doing social media, do a video, do another one the next day, 90 days out, they stopped doing it, they didn't get the result. Let me be very clear. I've been doing social media content for like the last 4.5 years, non-stop. And I did not see any upside from it for the first 2 years. It's only now that I get these leads in there. And social media is a great way for you to generate lead content. It has some other ways that you can generate some lead content. Consumer direct. I'm not going to a realtor. I'm not going to somebody to say, hey, can you send me business? I want to go to the guy that's buying the fucking house. I want that guy. That's the dude I want to talk to. You can do postcards. You can do mailers. There's different ways that you can touch the consumer directly. This is where your future is headed. Whether you like it or you don't like it, it's headed there. Working internet kids. Oftentimes, who here has heard mortgage leads suck? Anybody? Nobody's heard mortgage leads fucking suck? Really? Yeah. Thanks, brave soul. The rest of y'all are fucking liars. Why do they suck? Right? Well, because somebody buys a lead, and they call it once, call it twice, they don't get called back. There's no loans here, this is garbage. Let me be explicit about how much effort it takes. This is not an easy game, and it takes a lot of effort. How many contact attempts should you have? The answer is more. How many contact attempts do we have? When we buy one lead, there's at least 50 attempts, whether it's SMS messaging, whether it's phone calls, whether it's emails, SMS blasts, on every single one of those leads, unless they tell us that they're not interested and they don't want us to call them, that's fine, and we'll take it off the list. Okay? You have to keep calling. Why? Because guess who else is buying mortgage leads? Your competitors. And guess what they're doing? They're also calling, right? And yeah, brokers are better, we are special, but the customer doesn't know that. We just sound like the next mortgage guy. It takes a lot of effort. This is why you hear mortgage leads suck, right? It's the same reason why people won't get up in the fucking morning and go to the gym. It doesn't work. No, it does fucking work. Okay? Just try doing it for a decade, consistently. And you're gonna be in good shape. Don't just go in there and do one set and leave. You're gonna go in there, you're gonna be there for a while, you're gonna do a lot of stuff. Why do you think converting an internet lead would be any different? You have to put a lot of effort into it. And I want you to understand the attrition variables when you buy a lead. 70% of them you will never make contact with. That means that if I buy 100 leads, 70 I never make contact with. Meaning they never picked up my phone call, they never returned my text messages or SMS communication, they never replied to an email, and I never got them on the phone. That's the ugly truth behind consumer direct. Is you lose a high rate of traffic right out the gates. Now the 30 that you do make contact with, it's not all butterflies and roses, okay? Because if I make contact with you, it doesn't mean I got a chance to sell you a mortgage. Sometimes you pick up the phone and say, I'm not interested. That's a contact. I have a chance. Right? There's attrition on the sales. Does anybody not know what a sales funnel is? Yeah? No? Maybe? Sales funnel. The left side of the funnel is wide. Okay? That's all your leads that you buy. Okay? And then you have things that create attrition, and the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to the funded loan. Now, different things can mean attrition. When we just talked about the 70% we don't make contact with, that's the level of attrition. Okay? Some people tell you to fuck off. Okay? Don't say it back to them. I don't advise you. Okay? Some people don't qualify. Some people were just gathering information. There's attrition that goes down the line before you actually get to the funded unit. If you're going to work internet leads, you have to be good at phone sales. You have to be. And if you're not, learn. The education is out there. You spend $2,000 to come to New Orleans for a conference to learn. It's free to get an internet book on phone sales. Invest some time. This is not the same as you shaking somebody's hand. You know, anytime, the reason why you have more rapport with somebody that you meet in person is because of kinesthetics. When I shake your hand, I become more of a real person. The next step down from that is video. You can see me. And the next step down from that is phone. The next step down from that is digital and written communication. And you don't have the benefit of kinesthetics when you're doing internet marketing. So you have to offset that disadvantage by empowering yourself on being very good when you get somebody on the phone, being able to capture their attention so they'll hear you out, and then being able to walk them through the sales cycle, develop rapport, develop trust, all doing it over the phone. Learn to get good at phone sales. Or don't get into space, because you will just burn money. And if you're like, hey, would you like to talk to me about a mortgage today? Like, you're probably not going to yeah, I'd love to. I've been waiting for your fucking call all day long. Thanks for finally calling. I didn't cancel a lunch. Importance of speed. When you get a customer on the phone, speed is everything.
Do you use any video in your first video?
I don't. That's a good question. For those of you guys that didn't hear in the back, he's asking me if I use any video content for people when I first meet them, right? It doesn't hurt. But where I do use video content is when I'm wishing clients happy birthday, I'll send them a video text. Right? If I can't get them on the phone. First I try to call them because that opens the door to organic conversation, right? And maybe I get a referral deal out of it. If I can't get them on the phone, I want them to see something personal, see the conviction behind my voice when I'm delivering, and they see me face to face. There's not a wrong answer here to sending somebody a video. That might actually work and might actually increase conversion. I would think that would work better. And maybe I'll start implementing that. Like after you make contact and then you put a face to the name. Right? That might actually increase your conversion. In fact, that's going to be one of my notes out of the meeting. Thanks for sharing. When you get the client on the phone, I want you to understand that they need to complete that application as quickly as possible. They need to get their docs in as quickly as possible. And who here has applied for a mortgage? Keep your hand up. Keep your hand up. Keep it up if you apply to 50 different lenders for the same mortgage. No, right? You had your hand, did you apply with 50? Now you're just slow? You're not going to do it with a dozen people and a dozen companies. At some point, we only have so much time. We only have so much time to allocate in this department, right? So, getting the completed application while you're on the phone with them or starting is going to be critical for you. And what happens with your leads after you're done with your outreach? How do you nurture them post aggressive outreach? Email marketing campaigns, SMS targeting, right, where you can continue to nurture the databases. So I'm not gonna call somebody a thousand times. At some point, I'm gonna abandon ship, right? But I still want that thing to go to the graveyard. I still want to nurture in case in 9 months or a year and a half they have an interest. I have the ability to watch them raise their hand, and I can actually convert that business. Okay? One other way to do outreach, VAs or virtual assistants. They're dirt cheap. You can give them a list of your leads to call through. Give them the old ones. See if they can contribute some business. Give them a script. A lot of these guys, that's what they do. Okay? Give you an idea. We use virtual assistants. They cost us $5 an hour. Okay? They call on all our dead leads. They get a list of stuff that they need to call on. And most of the stuff they get not interested, but the rest of the stuff, some of it comes through, and they're ready to talk about a mortgage, and they get paired up with our loan officer. You guys can come in. Close funding, okay, your CRM. Using a CRM for subsequent loans. Okay? You should have a notation in your CRM when you fund a loan in 6 months. There should be a notation. In mine, it's called refi target. In 6 months, I'm just looking at it. It may not be ready for a refi. Okay, rates might not have dropped enough. I'll roll that out again, but your CRM should allow you to cultivate additional business from those same leads. Okay, and data mining capabilities. When UWM came out with that refi 125, okay, our system was such that we had the lender stored, we had the rate stored. I was able to just generate a list and go, these ones qualify for this program, and target it. Same thing with interest rates. You should be able to sort through your CRM and be able to see what rate you quoted somebody at. So you can know when rates drop, how far do they drop, and who are my prime targets, right? Your CRM gives you the ability to go out there and get yourself additional business. You should be leveraging this for future transactions from the same customer. And this is a consumer direct strategy. Rocket does this. I've ran a little bit over, we'll probably have time for 2 or 3 questions. Do we have any? Yes?
Can you speak to the evolution of like your team? Like when you start a consumer direct, obviously there's a lot of levers and you're trying to create volume
Yeah.
in limited time.
Yeah.
What did that look like from a solo producer to then doing this at scale?
Yeah, you know what? That's the same answer that I have for anybody that's out of shape that wants to get into shape. Okay? You don't actually go into the gym when you're out of shape and start working out 2 hours a day, right? Like that's not how it works. You build it systematically, right? You build the pieces together, and as you get more comfortable, and his question was the evolution of how did I get from A to B. As you get more comfortable, you add stacks to the technology. Technology is like Lego blocks, right? Not everything lives in one house. We have multiple technologies, platforms, and stacks. They stack on top of each other. They integrate with one another. Certain things do certain tasks. For example, we use Salesforce as our CRM, but all of our digital marketing communication goes through MailChimp. That's a tech stack that sits on top. MailChimp wasn't part of our strategy when we first started, okay? Because I was still making money. So you build it systematically. Stop trying to get from 0 to 100 in 5 minutes, okay? You know why 7-minute abs doesn't exist anymore? Because it takes fucking more than 7 minutes, okay? You had a question.
Are you generating purchase leads, and if you are, you turning around and giving them realtors?
What a fucking great question. You can do purchase on Consumer Direct. The answer is yes. Okay. When rates go up, we transition our strategy. We get away from the refi leads. We go into the purchase leads. Okay. We absolutely connect them with a real estate agent. Okay. If I have one in that market, it's going to be the person that we have a relationship with, and that's how I pay them back for the leads that they give us. Because we still get deals from realtors. It's not like I don't close business from real estate agents. I just know that they're about to be the fucking travel agent, right? And if you don't see those dots connect, you're in some deep trouble. We have time for one more question, and we're gonna wrap it up.
I got 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, who are you using for VA to get your service? And the second question is, are you doing a age lead or is that how you take the time?
Yeah, that's great. So the first question was VAs.
Yeah, who are you using?
Who are using? There's a company called Virtual Office. There's about 1,000 different VA companies out there, and you would have to interview them, work with them, and figure out who's going to be good for you and who's not. Some of them suck, some of them are good. That's part of the strategy. What was the second part of your question? What's that?
What was the name of it?
Called Virtual Office. Yeah.
Second is age lead. Like I know that oftentimes there's compliance issues and maybe they have compliance.
Yeah.
You must hear, or you're, how do you get through that?
Yeah, when a customer signs up on a lead vendor, they're gonna give blanket authorization, that they give permission for their vendors to contact them, for third parties to contact them. That's your blanket. So we have copies of all those agreements, right? So when we buy the lead, you actually have a 90-day window to call that from when you got that lead. Even if it's Sage, because it's when you get the data from the service providers. Their job to actually not give it to you. Conclusion, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I'm sorry I've gone just a little bit over. Understanding and adapting to the changing landscape. The world is changing underneath you. Don't be the dinosaur. And when the computer first came out, people were still firing away on their typewriters. Don't be that guy. And see the writing on the wall. Technology is going to eliminate the real estate agent. It is happening. And it's going to be perpetuated by the fact that they're making less money, and other companies will come in there to do it at a cheaper cost. And if you don't think that's true, go find me another sector where technology didn't disrupt it aggressively. Think about when the fucking tractor came out. Who farms without a tractor these days? Nobody. Technology displaces workers. AI will do the same thing, really, for conflicting data. Guys, I want to thank you for your time. My contact information is up there. If you want to talk to me about Consumer Direct, if you want to pick my brain, I will happily set up a Zoom call with you. If you want to hear me take a deeper dive into some of this stuff that's not condensed with such a broad range, there's a couple podcasts that, one was with UWM, I think it's session 175, if you want to notate that, and there was one on Ames podcast, what's the name of Ames podcast? Broker to Broker. There's one there that I did with Mark that I take a deep dive into Consumer Direct. This is a good way for you to have a deeper understanding about the path and trajectory that we're on. Guys, I appreciate your time today. You guys had a lot of great speakers at the conference. I'm looking forward to sitting in your chair. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. Don't be shy. If you have questions, come hunt me down. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Get really fucking drunk.
Thank you, everyone. We will have a 5-minute break. Let's try to get back in.